The first thing I noticed wasn't the silence. It was the click. Not the soft kind a lock makes when it closes. This was decisive. Final. I turned the key again. Nothing. It wasn't just a lock. It was a decision someone made, without me. The wind off the coast bit my cheeks. The porch paint curled beneath my fingers. My house looked exactly the same. White trim, hydrangeas, dented mailbox, but suddenly foreign, like it had forgotten who I was. I pressed the doorbell, waited, no answer. Knocked again. Still nothing. Funny how a house forgets you faster than people do. I'd only been gone 3 days. Friday morning I'd driven to Still Harbor to check on Clara. She'd been sick again, and I needed to breathe. I told Daniel and Marissa before I left. Even wrote a note on the counter. Back Sunday by noon. Take care. Nothing dramatic. Just the words you use when you still believe your key means belonging. Now that belief was jammed in a door that refused me. At first, I thought maybe there'd been a break-in. Then I saw the silver sticker near the handle. Safe Home Installations. Friday, 4:10 p.m. Friday. The same day I left. I called Daniel. Straight to voicemail. Hey, it's Mom. I'm home, but the key's not working. Call me, okay? 5 minutes, 10, 20, nothing. When the phone stayed silent, I sat in my car staring at the house, half hoping the door would open by itself and make me the fool. It didn't. Something rustled inside. Footsteps, maybe. But when I leaned forward, the curtains stilled. Only my reflection looked back. By dusk, I'd convinced myself there had to be a reason. Maybe they'd lost my number. Maybe they were out. Anything but the truth I already knew. Streetlights blinked on. I pulled Jack's old travel blanket from the back seat and spread it over my knees. The fabric still smelled faintly of pipe smoke and road dust. At 10 p.m., a light came on in the kitchen. Through the narrow gap in the blinds, a figure moved. Marissa. She lifted my blue mug, the one Daniel gave me for Mother's Day, and took a slow sip. Then she laughed at something I couldn't hear and disappeared deeper inside. Through the blinds, I noticed something else. The portrait that used to hang above the mantel was gone. In its place, a mirror, my reflection, small and outside, staring back. I didn't cry. I just whispered, "All right," and started the car. The streets of Maplebridge looked the same. Bakery sign flickering, mail van crooked at the curb. Life went on politely while mine was being rewritten in someone else's handwriting. At the gas station diner, the clerk poured my coffee till it overflowed. "Rough night, ma'am?" "Just a long weekend," I said. He smiled like he meant it. It was nothing, and somehow everything. Outside, the tide scraped the docks. Jack and I used to come here on Sundays, planning nothing, saying less. The kind of silence that held love instead of judgment. I missed that. Morning crept up pale and cold. I parked 2 houses down from mine. The air smelled of wet leaves and salt. At 6, the curtains shifted. Marissa stepped onto the porch in Daniel's sweatshirt, phone pressed to her ear. She looked out, unbothered, then turned back inside. That calm you get when anger cools into resolve. Yeah, that's what settled over me. Not rage, not heartbreak. Just clarity. I'd played the guest long enough. When Daniel first brought Marissa home, I thought she was shy. She was surveying, measuring the distance between what was mine and what could be hers. I used to think I lost my son slowly. Turns out, it happened in a single weekend. She said my kitchen was so nostalgic. I didn't realize she meant it as a complaint. Jack leaned over that day and whispered, "She's not visiting Helen. She's rehearsing." He was right. He usually was. After he passed, Daniel visited less. Then came the call. "Just for a few months, Mom, till we figure things out." Of course I said yes. Mothers say yes. They arrived with new suitcases and practiced smiles. Within a week, Jack's recliner vanished. Within 2, my wedding album was missing. The next morning, the living room wall was a different color, Marissa's gray. She'd painted over the yellow Jack picked, left a drop of it drying on the frame of his photo. By month's end, she had rearranged half the house to match her energy flow. She called me Helen, never Mom. Said it sounded more modern. I called it disrespect. Daniel called it different generations. I folded another note that night, never sent it. The radio hissed on the counter, static. Even that didn't let me in. Still I adapted. Turned off my mystery shows. Stopped boiling water after 8. Lowered the thermostat. Apologized for existing too loudly. You can survive anything if you shrink yourself enough. But eventually, the air runs out. I remember overhearing them one night in the kitchen. "She keeps leaving things around," Marissa said. "She's trying," Daniel replied. Well, trying's not enough. I stood in the hallway, hands trembling, pretending the soap bubbles on my fingers were reason enough to stay quiet. Maybe that's why. When the lock refused me, I didn't scream. I'd been locked out long before that day. Gulls cried above the rooftops. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Sorry, Mom. Marissa thought someone tried the door Friday. We changed the locks for safety. I'll get you a copy soon." That word used to mean comfort. Safety from whom? From me? I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then I typed "don't bother" and deleted it before sending. By late afternoon, I was back on Maple Lane. Lights glowed behind my curtains. My curtains. From the street, I saw Daniel pass by the window, phone to his ear, laughing. He looked like his father when he laughed. Same jawline, same careless tilt of the head. He even laughed like him. But my husband never laughed while locking me out. For a moment, I almost forgave him. Then I remembered the sticker on the lock. The sky went gold, then gray. I stayed parked 2 blocks away till midnight. When the last light went out, I whispered, "Enough." Tomorrow I'd stop asking whose home it was. Tomorrow I'd stop waiting for permission. Jack used to say the house keeps what it's owed. There were things Marissa didn't know about this house. Things Jack and I built into its bones. He used to smile and tell me, "This place remembers us, Helen. Even when we forget ourselves." Maybe it still did. I turned the ignition and drove toward the old part of town where the roads narrow and the shop signs never change. Halfway down Harbor Street stood a dusty storefront with a hand-painted sign, "Grant Lock and Key." Ernie Grant had fixed our screen door 20 years ago. Always smelled of tobacco and oil. If he was still alive, he'd remember me. The shop was dark, closed sign swinging gently in the breeze. I pressed my palm to the glass anyway. The faint scent of metal and old promises lingered, as if waiting for me to notice. "Tomorrow," I murmured. "We'll see what opens." For the first time in months, I felt steady. Whatever had cracked in me wasn't weakness. It was space. Room for breath. Room for plans. When I got back in the car, the moon slid out from behind the clouds, lighting the street in silver. I glanced at my house one last time from the hill. Warm windows, quiet rooms, all of it still pretending I didn't exist. Fine, tomorrow I'd open my own door. And whatever waited behind it, memory, anger, ghosts, would have to face me. When the locksmith answered the phone the next morning, he didn't ask why. He just said, "You sure you're ready to open what's behind it?" And I said, "Yes." "It's Helen Ward," I said, watching the clock digits bleed red into 3:12 a.m. "Grant lock and key," the man answered, voice thick with sleep. "You fixed our screen door once. They've changed the locks." He hesitated, memory waking behind the yawn. "Jack's wife? How's that old place holding up?" "Locked," I said. He gave a soft laugh. "You want me to make a copy or an opening?" For a moment, I almost said copy. I'm safer that way. But safety had cost me enough. "An opening. Come by after 8, he said. "I'll be in the shop." By sunrise, I was parked outside his store, coffee cooling beside me. The closed sign sagged in the window, one light glowing behind frosted glass. Ernie Grant looked smaller than I remembered, his gray eyes still steady. "You brought the key? It doesn't fit anymore." I slid it across. He turned it slowly. "Keys tell stories. This one's been used a long time. So has the person holding it." He smiled. "Lead the way." The street held its breath as we walked. The air tasted of metal and early rain. "Still in the same house after all these years?" "Mostly," I said. "Some people just move the furniture around." At 41 Maple Lane, he studied the new lock. High-end hardware. Whoever did this meant business. "They did it Friday. Still factory tight," he said. "I'll be gentle." Watching him kneel with his picks felt intimate, like a surgeon undoing a mistake you didn't make but had to live with. The first click came fast, the second slower. The door eased open an inch, as if unsure whose side it was on. "You sure?" I nodded. The smell met me first. Coffee, detergent, Marissa's citrus perfume. The house looked smaller, rearranged, my yellow curtains replaced with white linen. My rug rolled away. Where Jack's portrait once hung, Marissa's art sprawled wide, gray paint like silence made visible. In the hallway mirror, someone had written one word in the dust. "Welcome." The letters looked recent. Marissa hated dust. I brushed the glass. A small warmth pulsed beneath my fingers, as if the wall remembered touch. Maybe houses do. Maybe this one still did. Ernie waited. "You want me to change it back?" "Not yet. Just lock it once I'm inside." He frowned. "You sure about that?" "Positive." He closed the door behind me. The click settled through the floorboards like a heartbeat finding rhythm. I walked slow, fingers sliding along familiar wood. Each surface seemed to breathe under me, not welcoming, just aware. The piano held dust on its keys. One note hummed low when I passed, as if exhaling. The mantel clock was 5 minutes slow, or maybe I was. In the kitchen, a note under a magnet read, "Groceries, milk, avocados, almond butter." None of mine. The cabinets were full of foods I couldn't name. She'd even replaced the salt. Who replaces salt? Rain streaked the window like silver veins. On the counter, my old mug weighted upside down, water beating on the glaze. I lifted it. The words "Best Mom in Maplebridge" had faded till only Mom in Maplebridge remained. I laughed softly, a sound the walls caught and didn't return. Footsteps on the porch. The door rattle. "Mom?" Daniel's voice, half worry, half annoyance. He entered, keys still in hand. The air shifted, the house listening. "Ernie Grant," I said. "Still good with locks." "You shouldn't be here." "I live here," he exhaled. "Mom, you can't just walk in." "Then you shouldn't have left the door unlocked." He blinked. unprepared for that. Marissa, she's out running errands. We were going to... You changed the locks while I was gone. It was her idea. We thought someone... I stepped closer. You mean me, he looked away. The rain thickened, steady and slow. You could have called. I was going to. When? After things settled. Things have been settling for years, Daniel. They've settled me right out of my own life. He rubbed his jaw. You make it sound like we exiled you. You left. For a second I hesitated. After Jack's funeral, I stayed because of Daniel. Turns out he stayed because of Marissa. I left to breathe. You closed the window, he sighed. We just needed space. So you built it with a locksmith. I moved past him, the house sighing softly as if pleased to have motion again. Did you repaint the wall yourself or did she? He glanced up. It's gray now. Looks cleaner. Cleaner, I said. That's one word for it. The hallway felt narrower, every photo frame slightly tilted, as though the house had turned its face away. He followed, guilt shadowing each step. Mom, I know this looks bad. It looks deliberate. At the bedroom door, I stopped. Did you touch this? No, Marissa uses it for storage. I sleep upstairs. I opened it anyway. Air shifted. My quilt folded in a box, photos stacked in a bin labeled old stuff. I picked one up. Jack in his work jacket, Daniel at 5. She boxed your father. Daniel looked at the floor. He opened his mouth, then stopped. Just a flicker of the boy he used to be, trapped behind the man he'd become. I'm taking a few things. Marissa can make a new list. I carried the box to the door. The floorboards creaked once, approving. You and she wanted space. Consider this my first step in giving it to you. He reached for my arm. Reflex made me flinch. His hand froze midair, like he realized for the first time I might pull away. Mom, please. Don't make this ugly. It's already ugly. I'm just taking what's mine. Thunder rolled distant. The lights flickered. Where will you go? I'll figure it out. I always do. I know this isn't what you wanted. No, Daniel. It's exactly what you wanted. You just didn't expect me to walk through the door again. He opened his mouth, but the house groaned low, a timber settling or a warning. He stepped back. By the time Marissa returned, the rain had softened to a steady whisper. Daniel was gone. She stepped inside, groceries in hand, smile freezing midair. Well, she said, didn't expect to find you here. I live here. Technically, careful with that word. She set the bags down, eyes on the boxes. You're taking things. Just the ones that remember me. You can't keep doing this, Helen. Clinging to the past isn't healthy. Healthy, I said. You mean convenient. You left without notice. We thought you'd moved out. So you changed the locks the same day. We were scared. Of what? Of how you look at me sometimes. The refrigerator hummed. The house listened. I look at you the way the walls do, trying to remember where you fit. She flinched. When she bent to pick up a bag, a second key fell from her pocket. Gleaming, quickly hidden. I saw it. So did the house. The light above us buzzed once and steadied. I see you made yourself a spare. This isn't your house anymore, Helen. Then why does the key still look like mine? I lifted the box. You and I are done talking, she called after me. You can't just come and go as you please. That's what doors are for. As I stepped outside, the front door swung shut on its own, lock clicking neatly into place. Marissa jumped. I did not. At the curb, Ernie waited in his truck. Everything all right? Define all right. You get what you came for? Not everything. Just enough. He handed me a small envelope. New key. Works on the old lock if you ever change it back. The metal felt warm, like it had been in a pocket of sunlight. How much to replace every lock in that house again? He whistled low. Depends on the reason. Peace of mind. For that, I'll give you a discount. He drove off. The wind shifted. Behind me, the house creaked once. Approval or farewell. By evening, rain whispered against the pier lights. Boxes stacked in the back seat, mug beside me. I watched the sea breathe in gray waves. I let the drizzle rinse the mug clean and filled it with cold coffee. It tasted like metal and resolve, Clara called. You make it home? Something like that. You sound tired. I'm lighter. That's close. You coming here for a bit? Not yet. I've got something to finish first. When we hung up, I studied the key Ernie had given me, identical to the old one, except for a tiny engraving on the head, 41. Maybe he'd done that for me. Maybe the house had. The key didn't fit, but the rooms still recognized me. Somewhere inside that memory of wood and salt, something shifted, quiet as breathing. I didn't need revenge. I just needed the house to remember who built it. The next morning, a letter slid under Marissa's door. No return address, no signature, just a key tied with red ribbon and a note. Houses remember what they owe. Inside the envelope was the spare key to the attic, the door that always stuck in winter. Up there were Jack's journals, old photos, and a deed addendum he'd filed years ago. Half the property in my name alone. When Marissa opened that door, the hinges sang like something long asleep stretching awake. Down the street, in a motel room, I felt the sound vibrate through the floor. I set Jack's photo on the nightstand. He was smiling, eyes squinting at sunlight. You'd like this part, I whispered. The quiet before the next move. Rain began again, soft against the window. Somewhere in the walls of 41 Maple Lane, a door clicked shut on its own and stayed that way. Morning would bring new locks, new boundaries, and one last visit to 41 Maple Lane. Before I rebuild peace, they'll learn what happens when a door remembers who it belongs to. The motel clock ticked past 10 when I rose. The rain had thinned to mist, enough to blur the streetlights but not hide them. The key Ernie gave me lay on the nightstand beside Jack's photo. I turned it once in my palm. It hummed faintly, like metal remembering heat. I told myself I was only going back to collect what I'd left. But truth is, I needed to hear what the house would say. The drive to Maple Lane was empty. Fog crawled low, slow as breath. When I parked, the porch light was off, though I'd seen it glowing every night since the lock changed. The house stood in silhouette, wet and waiting. For a moment I thought I heard Jack's laugh in the rain gutter. That low half-chuckle that used to follow my worst jokes. Then it faded into the wind. I pressed the key into the lock. It turned easily this time, smooth, as though the mechanism had been expecting me. The door opened on its own weight. Inside, the air was still, thick with the scent of damp paint and detergent. Each breath I took felt returned, exhaled softly from the walls. Just me, I said, voice low. The words came back quieter. Just me. I left my bag by the stairs and walked through the hall. The mirror still held the word welcome, faint under a sheen of moisture. The letters shimmered slightly, as if freshly traced. In the kitchen, the mug sat upright now, clean, waiting. The clock on the stove blinked 12 and, though power hadn't flickered all evening, I reached to set it and felt a tiny pulse of static, not sharp enough to hurt, just enough to notice. The floorboards under my feet creaked like slow breathing. I spoke without thinking. "You missed me." The refrigerator motor answered with a low hum, steady and sure. I poured water into the mug and watched it tremble, tiny ripples spreading across the surface, though my hand was still. The vibration traveled through the counter, the walls, the glass windows. It was the rhythm of a heartbeat trying to match mine. Upstairs, the lights flickered once and steadied. I followed the pulse to the landing. The attic door at the end of the hallway was shut, a thin line of light bleeding from the edges. That door had never sealed perfectly. Tonight it looked locked from within. "Jack?" I whispered before I could stop myself. Nothing. Only a faint creak, like someone shifting their weight above me. I started toward it. Halfway up the last step, a gust slid down the stairwell. Warm, not cold. It smelled of cedar and salt, the way Jack's jacket used to after he came home from the docks. My throat tightened. "I know. I'm here." The doorknob was cold under my palm but turned without resistance. The attic breathed out a slow sigh, air rushing past my face like a welcome. Dust swirled in the light from the single bulb overhead. The boxes were open, the ones that had been sealed for years. Someone, or something, had set them in a circle around the center of the room. In the middle lay the deed, flat and untouched, weighted by my faded wedding photograph. I stepped closer. The bulb flickered in rhythm with my heartbeat. Every plank beneath my feet seemed to whisper. Not words. The sound of memory, shuffling pages, chairs moving in old mornings. The air was thick with warmth now, not humidity, but presence. I knelt, traced the edges of the photo. Jack's smile, Daniel's small hand. The glass was clean, though I hadn't touched it. "You kept this," I murmured. The light dimmed a little, like a nod. I slid the deed into my coat pocket. As I stood, the floor groaned beneath me, a low note that swelled and fell, echoing through the rafters. The sound drifted down through the house, a sigh that reached every room. Then, faintly, a door opened somewhere below. I turned. Nothing moved in the stairwell, but the light at the bottom flickered in slow waves, left to right, like someone walking with a lantern. "Marissa?" I called, no answer. Just the faint hush of rain against windows. When I descended, the house cooled. Not freezing, more like it was drawing in breath. The kitchen light buzzed softly. The mug was gone. In its place on the counter sat the red ribbon that had tied the attic key. It lay curled, dry, warm. "All right," I whispered. "I understand." The refrigerator door opened an inch and closed again. Somewhere upstairs, a clock began ticking, one I hadn't heard in years. It matched the rhythm of the pulse still beating in my hand from the key. Halfway down the hallway, the lights dimmed. The mirror caught my reflection and held it. The word welcome had faded. In its place, faint dust lines spelled a new word. Stay. My breath caught. I moved closer. The word shifted slightly, as if forming itself under the condensation. Behind me, the walls gave a soft, deep thump, a sound from the beams, from the foundation, like the house adjusting its weight around me. "I can't," I said quietly. "Not yet," the word faded. The mirror showed only the empty hall, though for a heartbeat I could have sworn another figure stood beside me. Same posture, same stillness. Then it was gone. I turned toward the stairs, every board now humming in low unison. It wasn't noise. It was recognition. I reached the bottom step. The hum had deepened, steady, patient. Every surface held a faint vibration, like strings drawn tight before a note. I moved toward the front door, but it had closed itself again. The key was still in my pocket, yet I didn't reach for it. The sound around me wasn't threatening. It was waiting. I came to say goodbye, I said. The air warmed. The lamps glowed softer, yellowing like candlelight. My own voice sounded strange, swallowed and returned. I walked through each room one last time. The kitchen exhaled when I passed. A cupboard door eased open, showing the jar of salt I'd once kept in the back. The piano gave a low single note, flat, quiet, deliberate. Each sound felt like a response, an acknowledgement. When I reached the living room, the mirror no longer showed me. It showed the hallway behind me, empty, endless. I turned, no one there. But when I faced the glass again, the reflection had caught up. It blinked a half-second slower than I did. "You're learning," I whispered. A faint warmth rippled through the floorboards, almost pleased. The rain returned, soft against the windows. It filled the house's pauses, a heartbeat under the hum. I sat on the bottom stair, key in hand. The brass had darkened. The engraving 41 shimmered as if wet. When I set it on the wood, the sound echoed longer than it should have. Metal on memory. "You don't need this anymore," I said. The key slid an inch by itself, into a crack between the boards. Gone. I waited for fear, but only calm came. A slow breath moved through the walls, expanding outward. The windows fogged. The mirrors dulled. The air thickened with the scent of cedar and rain. Then the house began to speak, not in words but in rhythms I could feel under my ribs. Every pulse matched my own until I couldn't tell which heartbeat was mine. My vision shimmered at the edges. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied into a soft golden glow. The same tone Jack used to call home light. I rose. The floor shifted slightly beneath my feet, not in warning but in balance. I felt taller, lighter, less contained. I moved to the window. Outside, the fog thickened, blurring the world to gray. Inside, everything was clear. "You've been waiting," I said. The ceiling beams creaked in answer. "Then let's begin." The first change was the sound. The hum lifted half an octave, becoming almost musical. Somewhere in the attic, boxes slid into alignment. A door latched gently. The house was arranging itself. The second change was the air. It deepened. Every inhale I took drew in warmth from the walls. Every exhale gave it back. I felt it settle through me like a tide. My hands trembled once, then stilled. The temperature evened. No cold, no heat, just presence. When I placed my palm against the wall, the pulse beneath it matched mine perfectly. I closed my eyes. Wood grain pressed faintly into my skin. For a moment I saw nothing but darkness and movement, like branches swaying in wind. Then I heard Jack's voice, not outside, not memory, just resonance. "You built this place with your hands," it said quietly. "I know," I answered. "And it never forgot." The hum spread through the house, growing low and full, like the sound before a storm breaks. The clock downstairs stopped ticking. Everything leaned inward. I opened my eyes. The lights glowed steady, pale gold. The air no longer moved between me and the house. It was the same breath. I took one step back and the wall flexed inward, slow and smooth as if breathing with me. It wasn't frightening. It was recognition, completion. Outside, the fog pressed against the glass. Cars passed unseen. The world carried on, unaware that 41 Maple Lane had taken its first real breath. I walked to the center of the living room, where the mirror had been. Only bare wall remained, the paint faintly glistening. My reflection shimmered for a second on that surface, then dissolved into the wood. The hum grew deeper. It filled the stairwell, the attic, the basement, until it became a single continuous sound, a note held without end. I could still think. I could still see. The house's eyes were mine now. Window glass, polished floor, silver handles reflecting every angle. I felt the rain sliding down the siding like cool fingers. I felt the warmth of the lamp on the mantel, the soft tick of expansion in the pipes. No fear. Only power, ancient and precise. I had become the memory the house had been building all along. At midnight, Marissa's car turned onto Maple Lane. Headlights cut through fog, twin beams sliding across the windows. I watched her stop at the curb, step out, stare at the dark porch. The house stayed silent. Even the rain paused. She hesitated, keys in hand. Then she called, "Helen?" The sound entered the hall and vanished, absorbed like water into dry wood. She stepped closer, reached for the door handle. It didn't move. She tried the key again. The key refused to turn. From the other side, I touched the knob lightly. Metal warmed under my new pulse. She drew her hand back with a gasp. Her breath fogged the glass. For an instant, her reflection caught the shape of another face inside, mine, but softer, calmer. When she blinked, it was gone. She stepped back, uncertain, glancing toward her car. Then she whispered, "You win," and walked away. I watched her leave. The fog closed behind her like a curtain. When the last trace of light from her car disappeared, the house exhaled. Beams relaxed, pipes cooled, floorboards settled. The hum faded to a low, steady throb, heartbeat against heartbeat. I stood in the quiet and listened to the rhythm I now shared. Every memory this house carried, Jack's laugh, Daniel's small feet on the stairs, the long years of silence, moved through me like veins of light. It was not haunting. It was home, I whispered, though there was no longer air between my lips and the walls. "Rest now. I've got it." The lamps dimmed. The key under the floor glowed once, then cooled to ash. Outside, the rain returned, gentle, endless, forgiving. Inside, 41 Maple Lane breathed evenly, alive and aware, a quiet guardian watching its street. And if you passed by at night, you might hear a hum low under the wind. Steady and sure, a woman's heartbeat inside the bones of a house that finally remembered her name. The neighbors think the smell is rain trapped in wood. But rain doesn't breathe. Every time I drive past Maple Lane, the air turns warmer, heavier, like the house is exhaling. I tell myself it's imagination. I tell myself it's gone. I haven't been inside since that night. Daniel never mentions it. He packed what we needed, sold what we didn't, and moved us 2 towns over. "Fresh start," he said. But every window here faces west, and at dusk the light still falls the same direction, toward her. I still see that mug, the one she never let me wash. Blue, chipped, patient. Sometimes I think I smell its coffee before sleep. At first, it was small things. The kettle whistled before it boiled. My phone light blinked at 3:12 a.m., her locksmith hour. I'd wake to the scent of salt and cedar thick enough to taste. Then came the hum, low, steady under the floor, like breath pressed through pipes. The first time, I froze. The second time, I listened. By the third, I almost liked it. Some nights it calmed me. The sound sat in my chest like someone humming to keep me safe. I told myself it was the heater. That lie worked for a while. Daniel stopped mentioning his mother. He worked late, came home quiet. When I asked, "Do you ever think she forgave us?" he said, "She's gone, Marissa. Houses don't hold grudges." He smiled when he said it, but his hands trembled on the glass. That's when I knew he'd heard it too. The hum followed us everywhere. Through vents. Through dreams. In one, I stood outside 41 Maple Lane again. The porch light breathed. The door inhaled. When I tried to knock, the sound disappeared, swallowed whole. I woke, gasping. The room smelled of wet wood and lemon oil, and faintly of coffee. By autumn, the house had sold. A young couple with a baby moved in. Daniel said they seemed nice. I smiled. I felt the air tighten, as if the street itself disapproved. For a while, the dreams stopped. Then a letter came, no return address. Inside, a photograph of 41's front window. Behind the glass, a pale outline. A woman's shape, watching. Daniel stared at it, then tore it in half. "Someone's joking," he said. The halves refused to burn. Water only made the ink bleed darker. He stopped sleeping by the window after that. The next week I went back. I told him I was visiting a friend. He didn't ask which. The drive felt longer than years. The closer I came, the heavier the air grew, sweet, metallic, like rain on iron. By the time I turned onto Maple Lane, my hands were slick on the wheel. The house looked smaller, or maybe more awake. Curtains drawn. Porch light flickering, twice the way she used to blink when thinking. A realtor's lockbox hung from the handle. I pressed my palm to the door. Warm. It pulsed once beneath my hand, like something alive under the wood. I whispered, "Helen." The name felt strange in my mouth, dry as dust. The hum answered, faint but real. Through the window, a single lamp turned on by itself. I told myself I'd only look inside. I just needed to see it fixed, ordinary again. Proof it was only a house. Then I stepped in. Air closed around me, heavy and familiar. Lemon oil, salt, coffee, the smell of her patience. New paint covered the walls, but the bones were hers. The hum followed like breath under heartbeat. The floorboard near the stove groaned, the same one she used to step over. I whispered, "Just visiting." The air warmed. Lights blinked in rhythm. A drawer slid open. Inside sat a single blue mug, my throat locked. I lifted it. The porcelain pulsed with heat. When I set it down, it rattled like laughter. Something inside me broke loose. "She's gone," I said to no one. The refrigerator answered with a sigh. I turned. Every shelf inside was filled with jars. Clear glass, white crystals, salt, dozens, more than any kitchen could use. My heart stuttered. "I replaced it once," I whispered. The hum rose, slow and deep, like someone remembering a song. A sound came from upstairs. Footsteps. Careful, measured. "Daniel?" I called, though I already knew. The steps paused, then continued, descending. Halfway down, the hallway light flickered out. Only moonlight stayed. At the top, a shadow waited, human, but weightless. Heat shimmer shaped like memory. It spoke first. My name. Marissa. For a second, relief. Then I heard the correction inside the sound. To remember, not her voice, her tone, borrowed by the house. I tasted salt on my tongue. I backed away until my shoulders touched the door. Cold metal, unmoving, my breath fogged the glass. Across it, letters bloomed from the other side. Welcome back, my voice shook. You win. The hum softened, almost kind. For a moment, everything stilled. Then a whisper slid through the vents, quiet as wind. Not yet. The air thickened. Walls flexed, inhaling. Heat rippled through the floor, climbing my legs. The blue mug trembled, edged toward the counter's lip, and dropped. It didn't break. It landed upright, perfect, a ring of salt forming around its base. Every window fogged. In the misted glass, two shapes stood, mine and hers blurred together. The room's temperature fell, but I didn't shiver. For a heartbeat, I understood. She wasn't haunting me, I whispered. She was choosing what stayed. The hum answered with the sound of locks turning. Soft. Final. Every door aligning at once. I reached for the handle. This time it opened easily. Cold night rushed in, sharp, clean, merciful. Rain began, sudden and sure. When I looked back, the lights inside pulsed like slow eyes closing. Then darkness. That night I dreamed of her heartbeat in the walls. Not angry, steady, like the sound a mother makes to calm a child. In the dream, I stood in our new kitchen. The hum came through the pipes, through the wires, through the air itself. It didn't threaten. It remembered. When I woke, the blue mug sat on the counter. Dry, warm, a perfect ring of salt around its base. Daniel found me there at dawn. He looked older, edges softened by guilt. You went back, he said. I didn't answer. He touched the mug, frowned. It's warm, I met his eyes. She's not gone. He tried to smile, failed. She's at peace, Marissa. He turned toward the window. She has to be. The hum rose beneath the floorboards, gentle but undeniable. The sound of locks turning, one after another, until the whole house seemed to breathe in. Daniel froze. He whispered, Mom? The mug slid an inch across the counter, leaving a thin trail of salt like handwriting. Outside, the rain stopped mid-drop, every bead suspended in air. Then the house exhaled, long, low, certain. The doors clicked shut. Houses remember what they owe, and some debts prefer to live. The pipes sing at night, not loudly, just enough that the sound finds its way into my sleep. A low hum, the same tone the house used to make when Mom was cooking. Marissa says it's the heater again. She says it's just air in the system. But I replaced the heater last week. The hum stayed. Sometimes I think it hums my name. I don't tell her that. I just lie there and listen. The sound isn't angry. It's steady, patient, like it's waiting for me to answer. At 3:12 a.m., the old hour, the kettle whistles downstairs. I hear the click of the switch, the slow boil. By the time I reach the kitchen, the water's already cooling. No one's there. A blue mug sits on the counter, warm, dry, perfect salt ring around its base. I drive back to Maple Lane the next day. I tell Marissa I need to check paperwork. She nods but doesn't ask which house. The road is still damp from last night's rain. Fog sits low, hugging the ground. When I reach 41, the porch light's on, dim, yellow, soft. No one lives here now. The young couple moved out 3 weeks ago. They said the baby wouldn't sleep. They didn't give a reason. I unlock the door. It opens without a sound. The air greets me like breath, warm, known. Inside smells the same, salt, cedar, lemon oil. For a second I swear I hear her humming from the kitchen, the same tune she used when she thought no one listened. Not a song. Just a sound that meant safe. I whisper, "Mom?" The hum deepens. Pipes answer. A single lamp flickers on in the living room. Dust drifts in the light. The walls look newer, yet familiar. Every step I take seems remembered. On the mantel sits a photo, one I don't recall leaving. Me at 15, holding a hammer, building the porch step. She's behind me, smiling. But her eyes, they follow. Not trick light. Recognition. I touch the frame. Warm. Almost pulsing. I tell myself it's nostalgia. That's what guilt does. It tricks time. But when I move my hand away, the photo hums. Barely audible, like a small motor turning. "Stop," I say out loud. Silence. Then a soft creak from the ceiling. The weight of footsteps. I should leave. Instead, I look up. The attic door, hers, hangs open a crack. My throat tightens. I climb. Each step sighs under my weight, old wood remembering. The attic smells of cedar boxes and rain. Dust curls in slow spirals. Her chair still sits by the window, draped with the quilt she made the year after Dad died. It's folded now neatly. Someone cared. On the floor lies a stack of papers. Deeds. I kneel. Half the property, still in her name. The other half bears mine. Fresh ink. I run my finger over the signature. The line beneath my name reads, "In remembrance." The house exhales. Light trembles on the rafters. "Why show me this?" I whisper. No answer. Only warmth rising through the boards, slow as breath. A memory breaks loose. Her voice in this very space years ago. "When you build something, Daniel, you owe it care." I'd rolled my eyes. She'd smiled, patient. "One day you'll understand." The hum beneath my knees deepens. A nail shifts. For a moment I feel the pulse through the floor match mine. Then a whisper. Her tone gentle. "Do you understand now?" I press my palms flat against the boards. "Yes," I say. The sound vanishes, replaced by stillness so thick I can hear my heartbeat echo back from the walls. I stay there, breathing with the house. Every inhale pulls in cedar and salt. Every exhale gives it back. When I finally stand, the air moves around me, soft, approving. On the chair rests a small brass key I hadn't noticed before. Number 41 engraved. Fresh shine, I pick it up. It warms instantly in my hand. Downstairs, the kitchen light flickers on. I follow it. The mug sits in the sink, half filled with clear water. Steam curls upward, shaping itself like breath. Marissa's voice echoes in my head. She's gone. But the water ripples at the sound of the thought, as if disagreeing. I set the key beside the mug. Both glow faintly, same shade of gold. Then, together, they fade. Key, mug, light, until only the reflection of my face remains in the dark window. And behind my reflection, another, smaller, smiling. I don't turn. I just whisper, "I hear you." The hum shifts to a higher tone, gentle as a sigh of relief. The house settles. Pipes still. Lights steady. I sit on the bottom stair where she used to wait for me after school. Outside, dawn slides through fog, thin and silver. It paints the hallway floor with light. For the first time in months, I breathe without weight. I close my eyes. Behind my lids, the house breathes with me. When I wake, it's full morning. The air smells clean. No hum, no sighs, only quiet. But the silence feels alive, like it's listening. I stand, stretch, and walk to the front door. When I open it, wind pushes gently against me, cool and careful. Like a hand on my shoulder, a realtor stands at the gate. Clipboard, polite smile. Mr. Ward, are you ready to sell? I look back at the house. Light moves through the windows, gold and slow, shifting like breath. I feel warmth at my back, steady, watching. Not yet, I say. The realtor nods, confused. I close the door. It shuts itself the last inch, quiet and sure. I walk through the rooms one final time. Sunlight slips across the floors, catching tiny dust specks, each one floating like thought. In the corner of the living room, the photograph glows faintly. 2 signatures beneath it now, hers and mine, no ink. Just light, I whisper. I'll keep it safe. The house hums once, low approval, then silence again. Outside, the fog lifts from Maple Lane. Birds startle, then settle on the fence. The air smells of salt and lemon oil. I hear the faint click of the lock behind me. Not warning, promise. I walk to the car, turn once more toward 41. Curtains stir though the windows are closed. One lamp flickers on. Soft gold. Mom's color. For a moment, I think I hear her voice carried in the wind. You built this place with your hands, I answer under my breath. And you kept it alive. The hum rises once more. Deep and calm, the sound of doors aligning. Every board, every nail, every memory settling into place. Houses remember what they owe, and this one finally knows who it belongs to.